Facts are not the truth. Emotional truth is the truth. So as a writer, you go for the emotional truth. Hitting bottom can be sometimes the best thing that ever happened to you. You don't have to be anything. You just are. And like a person who keeps their word to themselves consistently, that's a special thing.
Happy New Year, New York Reelers. I'm Olive. You're watching New York Reel TV. Welcome to a new episode of New York Reel. My guest in this new episode is Kamal Ravikant. He is a startup investor, best-selling author. He's in fact a writer of Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. The main theme of Kamal's new book, Rebirth, is saying yes to life. When I was at Tim Ferriss' New York City event, I had a book on me, and people actually asked me, hey, where did you get Kamal's new book? I thought it's not out yet. They were right. It comes out January 3rd, 2017, so I'm sure you guys are really excited for it. Reading Kamal's new book and having a conversation with him, to me, is like a journey. It's like a Camino by itself. Enjoy this New York Reel interview with Kamal Ravikant.
It's a pretty legit operation you got there.
This is New York Reel. I'm Olive. Today my guest is Kamal Ravikant. He is an author, actually best-selling author, investor. Mm-hmm. We're going to be talking about lots of interesting things regarding your writing routine, venture capital fund, and your new book, Rebirth.
Rebirth. I love it. It matches your hair.
Thank you. Welcome to New York Reel.
Thank you for having me.
So, I read up to day 31.
Okay.
But I kind of don't want it to end.
That's good.
I want to talk to you first and then finish it. Because I kind of don't want to know the end, if there is the end. But the process is very important. I want to ask you something. Mm-hmm. With sight, taste, touch, sound, hearing, what did I miss?
Name it, like basically sensations, right?
Sensations, five senses. What is the most important to you? Because I've seen a lot of, this is so rich in the book. I wonder what you are more sensitive to.
I'm visual. I'm very visual. And so actually my first drafts are incredibly visual. And then I go in and then I layer in, like, this is years and years of work, right? Mm-hmm. So like layering in and cutting and layering in like the other senses. I think Hemingway used to say, like, you put it all in, and he said, don't ever forget the weather. Like the things like that sets the mood. Yeah. So it's like, in writing, I'm a big believer in you actually like, you layer in the senses, but not overdo it, but you also have to pick on which scene, what dialogue, what actually sets the feel, right? And so it's all over the place. In a book like this, where the main character is walking through a country like Spain, you have so much to work with, yes. Right? So you have to, you have to use economy, actually, and the right ones at the right places to set the feeling. But my first drafts are always very, very visual. In fact, people always say, how come you don't take many photos of yourself or whatever if you're traveling? I'm like, because I put it in here. Right. I walk around and just like memorize like scenery. And then if I'm writing, I just call that up, and I work on describing it in a way that someone doesn't have to see it the way I saw it, but they will feel what I felt in that moment.
And it was very descriptive. Sometimes I would go back. My friend saw me reading this, and he said, "Oh, it's a quick read, right?" I said, "You don't know. You don't understand. You actually have to be in this world." And sometimes I go back like 2-3 paragraphs just to read it again, because I want to experience the same sensation and the colors that I saw and the smell. I went back to read about all the tomatoes, the avocados,
Oh yeah, the sandwiches. Yeah.
the leftover
Spain
spaghetti.
food. I mean, Spain is, you know, you if you're traveling to Spain, you're gonna have wine and food.
And you actually have traveled there for 500 miles
Yeah,
yourself?
I actually walked the Camino de Santiago when I was in my mid-20s. It's a 550-mile pilgrimage through Spain from the 11th century. And, I'm not religious, and most people who come and walk it, not religious either. But it's something that you do that by the time you're done, it changes you. You can't do that, come to a country, foreign country, walk in the footsteps of millions of people over the centuries, following their trail, walking through wheat fields and vineyards and mountains and deserts and cities and cathedrals and castles. And you can't, and the people you meet along the way and the conversations you have, the metaphor for internal versus external, this is literally both. You are changed. Like, you process stuff, you let go of things. It's very, very powerful thing. It was very powerful for me when I did it. And so this story that I wanted to tell, but also using in all the things that I write about my other books that I've learned over the last my life, right? Like the core lessons.
Love yourself, like your life depends on it, and live your truth.
Yeah. So like there's a lot of life lessons I wove into this book, and fiction, a story, allows you to do that in a way that they all fit perfectly, rather than just write a book, lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3. And also, I think as human beings, we learn better through stories. We carry stories with us. Kids run a campfire and kids make up stories. Humans campfire. Like stories. I think we pass along for so long wisdom from in cultures was passed along in the oral art of storytelling.
I love that you used the word fable.
Yeah, that actually, we went back and forth a lot, the publisher and I, and because it's not a novel. A novel is like a story, but it's a story. It could be entertaining, whatever. This is actually more like a self-help, kind of evocative, you take a journey while you're reading it, and you learn, and you're better by the end of it, just as the main character is better.
Yes.
And so the best description for that is a fable.
Yes. I haven't read a fiction for the longest time,
Yeah.
I'm into a lot of books by the thought leaders, that's 1, 2, 3, point 1 through 3, a lot of that.
Yeah.
But I really, really enjoy reading this, especially in New York City. It's so crowded. I'm on a crowded train, and I'm like, bye guys. And I just feel like this is very. It's almost like cleansing. And okay, characters. I love them. They're so vivid. I put faces to them. I'll show you pictures of later,
cool.
Who I think that they would look like that I know of. How many of them are people that you actually met? And do you combine people that you meet and then just put two people in one?
Yeah. What I did, some of the characters are, I took someone I met who was such a great, fun character and then I put then I created a dialogue and made them more of what the story needed. And then some I tried to capture people I've met in my life exactly as who they are, weaving them in and out. So it's a whole combination of it's the danger of hanging out with writers. You will find yourself in a story. I bet you friends of mine read it and they will find things they've said to me or we've talked about woman in here.
I thought the first time that came to mind was Cat, the woman Cat.
Uh-huh.
I was thinking there's something similar to the story you shared at Awesomeness Fest with Joanna because they both died.
That's right.
Before.
Yeah.
I don't consider these spoilers, by the way, because you still have to experience it.
Yeah. Died and came back.
Yeah, came back.
Yeah. It's actually an interesting theme I've come across. But these are people I've met actually who've told me these actual stories. Those stories, the most fantastic ones, you can't make up. They've actually, people have lived them. And that's a story that someone told me that she went through and what it was like, to go and then the choice she had to make and what she experienced was so fascinating. It was the tunnel of light, but there was way more than that. It was wow, this is a really interesting story. So, but one of the things about writing a book is, because you have a narrative arc, you can't just throw stories in. In fact, I've had to cut out so many favorite things from it because they didn't serve the book. So you basically, everything in here, every character, every dialogue, even every flower that's described, it serves the book. It moves somehow the characters and the reader forward. But yeah, Cat was. obviously all these are, expressions of myself, these characters, but they're also expressions of people I know and I've met, and some of them, as best of my ability, I could remember their stories 2 decades later. I'm putting them down, or not 2 decades, not that long, but a decade later, whatever. Yeah.
And in the beginning, when I read it, I wasn't sure if this is autobiographic or not, so I just kept guessing. Did he want to go to med school? Like, does he live with his family here? And the character Amit in this book is 27. Is it 27 or 8?
I think 26 or 27. I made him in his late 20s, where still young enough to be dumb, but not like crossing over that point where he's like, he knows he's dumb and he needs to like
he can make
grow.
mistakes.
Yeah, and he's learning and growing. Yeah. When I say dumb, I mean that. From my own experience, how I was in my 20s.
But I love that he is so vulnerable, but he is really strong when he's called for it. For example, like he talked about when he used to see how his stepfather mistreated his mom, he would do something. And when he was at the graveyard and he saw the people making jokes about the bones, and he had to say something. And that quality of him I found really sweet.
Thanks. That graveyard scene was actually before, in the scene he had done nothing, and then my editor, Maura DePrada, amazing editor, Hachette, he recommended. He's like, no, you need to do something there. This is a turning point for him. And I realized, because he's walking to the land of life, death, rebirth, and this is in the land of death. What is the shift that's going to happen to him in the land of death? And so it was perfect. And I just sat down and wrote that scene like that. I was like, that's it. Like, just what he's going to do. And then he collects the bones and what he does. It's like, that starts like showing like the shift. It's almost like in a movie, you start to see certain scenes where a character makes different decisions than they would have before because of what they've been through.
Right.
And that's actually
in a similar situation, he would have grown and he would have done something.
Yeah, who knows, right? But that got to show, like, you start to see his growth. And he becomes more accepting a part of the Camino, the journey he's walking, rather than fighting it as he was before.
I really like that. And also, I saw that more than once he walked in like a church or cathedral and says, well, I'm thinking about a thought. I'm not praying, by the way. I'm here for the garlic soup only. And was there a really garlic soup?
The garlic soup actually is based on a experience I had when I was walking Camino Santiago, because you're walking it's a part of I think it's called Montes de Oca, which is this like stretch of the woods, just in the woods with pines. You're walking forever, and there's a monastery with this when you're walking with a backpack for days, like the fact that someone makes some sort of special soup is just enough like to keep you going. And so there was this like rumor of this priest that should make this garlic soup. So like all day I've been walking, like looking to get to the monastery to have the garlic soup. And like in the end, the garlic soup literally was just like hot water with some garlic in it.
I love how it ended.
It was perfect. It was perfect. What it led to, right? The whole experience of meeting the priest and how he created what the soup was, for him that he was sharing.
The end of that chapter was particularly beautiful. Right now I can't find a page, but it ended perfectly. You were right. It was just regular soup, but
it wasn't regular soup. It was hot water with garlic.
I'm not even regular soup.
Yeah.
But it's people that you have it with.
Yeah.
And then everyone talked about how I'm from France. I'm from America. Who else? There's a woman from Brazil. Was she in there? Maybe
not
she
that
wasn't
chapter.
in there. Yeah. Like I can see it almost like a screenplay. I was like, how do you say her name?
Rosangela.
Oh yeah, Rosangela. I love her dolphin earrings.
Yeah.
Nobody described things like so in such details.
Thanks.
Dangling.
Thanks.
Ooh. And did you really meet someone attractive on your journey?
You meet attractive people on every journey. No, that was actually that character was mainly made up based on multiple people I met along the way. But she became in the first few drafts, in the first 4 drafts, she wasn't that important a character. It's only, I think, the last draft where I actually wove her in and realized that she weaves in and out of the main character's journey and how their journeys coincide. And it's actually like when he's able to like let go and then know that he's ready to love again. So she became a very important part of the book, and it was a lot of fun writing her.
Yeah.
Because she's Brazilian, and there's a restaurant I go to, La Express, a few blocks away from here. And I would go there when I was writing, working on this draft. I'd go sit in the mornings, and I'd just sit there, have my coffee, and I'd have like a notebook, and I'd be writing. And there's a waitress there who's Brazilian. I would just sit there and listen to her talk in the background in English, and like the rhythm of speech, you know. So like some of the stuff she said is actually ended up here, but Rosangela saying it. I haven't told her that, you know. Like there was this one line she said. We were talking once about love, and she's like, you know, that love. Each time you fall in love, it's like falling in love again for the first time. I was like, oh my God, what a great line. And she's like, isn't it beautiful each time? It's like the first time. I was like, oh my God, like that's got to go in a line somewhere. So like I basically wove a lot of Rosanna just to get to that line.
I love it. I love the scenes when they're together alone. It was so cute, like almost like teenagers.
Yeah, she's slightly older, you know, and wiser than him, which I made that on purpose.
Yeah.
You know, so he's got to like step up and become better to the point where he can actually have a chance of being with a woman like that.
It breaks my heart when he knew he had to take this long journey, but he cannot be, you know, back home with his mom or girlfriend, and he knows that he needs to take that no matter what, but he also feels that that's perhaps selfish.
Yeah, you know, it's actually one of the things I really like. You know, a lot of this book is actually about following our heart, like really what we know we need, even though it's not guaranteed what's ahead of us, but we know we need to do this. We need to follow this path, and we do it, and the path unravels and guides you and gives you what you need. But you were never guaranteed that. But the irony is that you have to go into the unknown. You have the unknown following the heart, what the heart is guiding versus what the world is saying, and you know, like the safe way.
Yes.
In my life, you know, as an entrepreneur, as a VC, as an author, that's what has led to any success I've had, you know, across the board. So
that's
it's
what
something.
The magic is.
Yeah.
As you said in the book and also in your speaking.
Yeah, it's something I fundamentally believe, and I don't live it all the time. You know, sometimes I give in to fear, but whenever I just follow my heart and like really what the inner guidance is, not the. Because you have to learn to listen to it. You know, it's not this, it's this thing, and it comes from like a deep kind of place. What that calling is, and when you follow that, you know, it's not necessarily always easy. It's not always painless. You know, because you have to let go of things. You have to let go of things that you didn't realize were holding you back. You know, to go into the next level. But my God, when you look back, you know, you're like on some mountaintop somewhere. Like I never would have gotten here without actually doing that journey. And so this book is actually a metaphor for that, but also is literally that as well.
Yes, and you talked about how one character said when you got all the way to the bottom, there's only one way, which is up.
Yeah.
And then perhaps sometimes bottoms have levels.
Yeah, when he says that, it's like if there's bottoms, then this apparently does levels. Yeah, because he's a bit of a wise ass. I enjoyed writing him. Like there's one point with that monk, he's giving the finger.
Oh my God! And then the other finger.
And then he's really pissed because of 2 fingers. I was like, when I wrote that, I was loving it. Like he's drunk. It's like
that's something he would say.
He's so pissed at the monk. You know, he's just like the monk's just saying, it's like no, and he gives. You know, it's like it was fun to write him, and that makes him real. Like
I actually laugh out loud at parts. Yeah. Like they were walking, and then they were like, "Oh, be careful!" Like
the
dog poo.
Yeah. You know, you add reality. You get otherwise. You know,
very self-aware characters.
Yeah, because life is not people talking and just lecturing each other. Life is conversations and journeys, and then you step in dog poo, and then you know, like, so literally that's what a real journey is. And so I tried very hard to actually get that here. So one of my goals was someone can read this and have literally walked the Camino de Santiago and have had an experience of what it would have been have a pilgrimage. Like everything there's accurate, like fundamentally down to a map, down to like everything you see in there has been researched and is very accurate.
So now people every day they still go.
Yeah, every day they still go. I think something like 100,000 people walk it a year.
And well, I haven't gotten to the end. How long should people set aside the time to do that?
It's 550 miles across the country. You know, depends how fast you want to do it. But some people just do it like 1 week, and you know, go do a section for 1 week. You can do that. There is no hard and fast rules. You know, if one wants to transform the journey, you know, like he goes off and searches because some guy tells him that everyone who walks the Camino finds themselves.
Yes.
And it's really, cliche enough, it's true. I haven't met anyone who's walked it who hasn't like really been transformed in some way. They came back, they're like different.
Did you stay in touch?
Some of them, yeah. Some of them, yeah. Some, you know, over time you lose touch with most people. Facebook makes it easier. I did this pre-Facebook, and so.
When he said bye to some characters, I was worried that I won't see them again. I don't want to.
Yeah, that is actually part of walking a pilgrimage. You know, you like people come in and out, just like life. Mm-hmm. Right? A pilgrimage is a perfect metaphor for life, for living a full life of lessons in a short period of time, and you know, then you go on and live your quote unquote real life and apply the lessons.
Yes, and other people you meet, just like how we live our city life too.
Yeah, yeah.
So maybe after when the book releases, we'll talk to all the readers and see who wants to go.
That'd be awesome. You know, like it's funny, when I was pitching this to publishing houses, and every editor I met, and I was fortunate, there was a nice amount of interest in it, they all said the same thing. Said after reading that draft that I submitted, they all wanted to go walk it when they were done. You know, which was a heck of a compliment. If you think about it, it was a heck of a compliment to have them realizing there's something special about doing this, by you know, and that book gets that across.
It's tough. I know it will be tough. All the blisters and being really tired.
Yeah. I mean, that's look, like when I was 18, was it 17, 18? I joined the Army, right? So I was in infantry boot camp, Fort Benning, and it was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it was one of the best things I've ever done. There was not one day that was easy. You know, every day you're challenged. Every day you're like, what the heck did I do? Like, can I find my recruiter, shoot him? Everybody hates a recruiter, but when you come out, you are different.
What are the things you've done there?
What do you mean?
What are the tough things, the challenges?
I don't know. Like, I was in the military. I've, climbed mountains. I've started companies.
In the military.
Military. I was just an infantry soldier.
But you were young, so you're younger than I meant.
Yeah. No, I did that when I was 18. Probably one of the best things I could have done for myself. You know, I got to serve my country, and on top of that, it gave me an experience of, I could, you go to an 18-year-old, you never been, we didn't have an easy childhood, so it's not like I came from a coddled place. But to go in the military, where they just don't care who you are, where you come from, they just beat the crap out of you, every day. It's in a not like sometimes Larry, but whatever. You come out, you are someone who can handle himself. I'm talking about male because I was a male. I am a male. I tend to still be a male, but you handle yourself better. You carry yourself in a way that you just you just know you can take care of things. You can figure things out. It's the same as when I backpacked across countries where I didn't speak the language, right? With very little money in my pocket. You have to figure out where to sleep, where to eat, what friends to make, all that. You grunt and point at things and hope you don't get giardia, when you eat it, and then you end up with giardia, but you know what? You come out of it like, you can just handle things and figure things out. That's such a great gift to give oneself. They're fun experiences, but they're not easy. Like military was not fun. It was not easy either, but it was challenging. But it was a great experience as an 18-year-old to give myself. I look back and that's like, I'm so grateful for that.
So Kamal, I imagined every day you approach by people you work with and say, hey, what do you think of this? This or that? Decisions. Do you think you are very decisive? Do you like answering questions?
It's an interesting question. When you say people I work with, you mean like
like it on daily basis? Not like do you want whole milk or soy milk, but like with work.
It's interesting. My work these days, everything I do, I'm kind of on my own.
Oh.
Like I run a venture fund, but it's like me having meetings with entrepreneurs and then eventually deciding who to invest in.
Right.
And then I help the entrepreneurs and I advise some companies, and so investing companies, I advise companies, and I write books. So that's pretty much what I do. So it's pretty much all on my own. I have some people who work for me, but it's still mainly a one man show of, like, as far as decision making goes. And I think decision making is more of a habit, more of a learned habit than anything.
How so?
You just like I've having started companies, right? You just learn. You don't have paid time for dilly daddling. You just make decisions and move forward. If it's wrong, you'll fix it. If it's you can't sit there and worry about the consequences. It's either choose A, choose B, choose C, go ahead. Oh, should have done A. Okay, shift, go back to A. But at least now you know one path's gone. It's really, especially when you're the leader, when you're the founder. Everyone looks to you to make the decisions. You just have to. It's a great way to learn to make decisions. I don't know if I'm a natural decision maker or not. I just become that way. Obviously sometimes it's nice not to have to decide. Just like go with, one of the great things I've worked on in life is to learn to go with the flow of life versus force it. Because every time I force it, it doesn't work. It's like versus go with the natural instinct of where life is guiding me. I'm telling you, every time I think if I was just think of most of the suffering that's come in my life, of my personal suffering, quote unquote suffering, it's from fighting the flow of life. It's saying no to what's happening. And actually, this book, this book is ultimately it's about saying yes to life. My hope is that by the time someone's done reading it, they've shifted inside to the point where they actually have taken an inner journey where they're actually opening up and saying yes to life. Yes to the things that need to be resolved within themselves, like in the book, with forgiveness and love and even, hitting bottom and rising up, which is something I've learned in my life. Actually hitting bottom can be sometimes the best thing that ever happened to you. Because that's, I think, when you can say like, okay, never again, and that's when you become a phoenix. That's when you become your real self. I can say from my life, that's actually when I've discovered my real self, and is when I have hit bottom. I try to make a habit of it. It's highly overrated, like to do it again and again, and never by purpose. But if one does, it's not a thing to, I think our life is over or this is horrible. It can actually literally, and I'm not the only one. I've talked to many people, very, very successful people, in every metric you want to name, whether it's fulfillment or money or whatever. They've all gone through something like this. And it was after that they really rose.
So before you wrote Love Yourself, you hit that so-called bottom. And how was that transition like when you were like, I have had enough, I need to do something, I need to change?
It was I'm going to get out of this or die trying. It's like that. Gone with the Wind, and she goes, as God is my witness, I will never go hungry again. And she's not going to go hungry after this. You just know when you get in that state of like, this is it. I'm either in or out, like the ships are burned behind me, I'm just going in. That's when all the great things happen, So I'm a big believer in personal commitment, making a commitment to oneself, and then doing whatever it takes to meet it.
Do you tell people once you make the commitment, or you just write it down?
I don't share it with others. It's personal. I think for a couple of things. I think we have a tendency in our modern culture to just overshare. So who was telling me about this other day? He's like, I see all these blogs about people writing about how they're writing a book versus writing a book. It's like.
Well, I know a lot of them think that then people will hold me accountable, then I can't get out of it.
Maybe if that's what you need, but then have one or two people who you really look up to that you would feel like crap if you let them down. Just do that. You don't have to tell the whole world. Let the world see your result. In fact, I think, who is it? I think Tony Robbins. Somebody say like the world rewards you publicly for what you do privately.
I love it.
People I'm very fortunate my books do very well. What people haven't seen is like that over a decade of like after work, during work breaks, weekends, nights, holidays, writing and rewriting and collecting rejection letters over so many years until I got to the point where now they're chasing me. Right? It was, instant success. I don't think look, we all have talent, right? And talent is I think we all have our own talent in something. But I think to create something consistently of value, talent's not enough. You need craft. You have to work on it. No matter how gifted an actor you're, a writer you are, you can just spin words. If you don't work on the craft consistently, you will never consistently create great things over time. Look at all the great artists. Look at all the great writers. They worked. They put in their time. They took the risks. and I think that's beautiful because in growing, in your craft growing, you grow, you become better, and so I'm a big believer in that, and just rather than like talking about it, rather than make the commitment to oneself. And if you have to share one or two close people that you would really feel like a moron if you let them down, and then do it, and then just go and do it. And some days you do bad, some days you do good, but you do it. You just do it every day. I mean, I have days where I fall short, way short of my commitments, but a commitment is a practice. It's not like a one-time thing, right? So the effects compound over time, and yeah.
Commitment is a practice.
It is. Every great thing in life is a practice. It's not a one-off. You get married, you make a vow. It doesn't mean, okay, we're done. Now the work begins, like you got to keep that vow. You got to every day work at it. Same thing, anything. Building a company every day.
Dory Clark, who actually introduced
She's
us,
awesome.
she says she doesn't believe in writer's block because when she used to be a journalist, journalists don't get writer's block.
No. Deadlines are a writer's best friend. Writer's block is just, I don't believe in either. Honestly, I don't, because here's the thing, there's no such thing as like, I sit in front of a blank page, I can't write anything. You can write something.
You have thoughts.
You can write something. So there's no such thing as writer's block. Now, if I'm working on a piece, I may get stuck where I am in that piece, so I'll just jump somewhere else in the piece. My mind is stuck here, like when I'm writing a book. I may be on like a middle of a chapter and I'm stuck, so I'll just go work on a different, completely unrelated chapter. So your mind always has room for something else.
And then somehow they will all come together.
Oh yeah. I'm totally with her. I don't buy it either, and especially deadlines. They hone you. Really, that's deadlines are, I think, a creative's best friend. Startups are best friend. Otherwise, you never ship. You have weekly milestones, deadlines. You're accountable to the team, and as an artist or a creator, it's lonelier because you don't have all that. So you kind of have to create that system for yourself. But I don't think tweeting and Facebooking and Snapchatting and Instagramming about what you're trying to do versus doing it and then share what you did.
Good advice.
That's my personal philosophy, honestly.
Our New York Reeler, Josh, has a question for you.
Hey, Josh.
What is the most interesting experience you've had with a reader of Love Yourself? I suppose he really likes this book.
That book's been transformative for my life. I have I don't know, 10,000 plus emails from readers. I've met many in person. What's been the
most interesting experience with a reader?
That's hard to narrow down. Honestly, the most fascinating for me have been some of these emails from people. If you think about it, I have nothing in common with except the fact that we're human beings. I got this email from a young girl in Ukraine. I have never been a young girl, nor have I ever lived in Ukraine, right? And the book's not available in Ukraine, I know. So it's it's available on torrent sites or whatever. And she talked about how for the first time, she started to realize she can actually like herself and accept herself as a young girl after reading that book. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. That's amazing. And then at the same time, I've gotten, I remember this one when we started talking for a while, she was 70-something. She's in some Isle of Man or Isle of Wight or something in England, just telling me this is the first time, it's very similar to what the young girl said. And and she's you have this old lady fan club with a crush on you, which is awesome, which is just awesome. Her and her friends, they're just reading the book and how it's affecting them. That's actually blows my mind. People that our life experience is completely different, right? We have nothing in common. We are human beings, and I think that's why Love Yourself does so well, because it's a fundamental human truth. What I did was, instead of being cliche, I wrote about it in a practical way of what I do, and apparently if other people to do the same practical way, it works.
What is the Love Yourself practice?
Oh gosh, it's a bit more than describing in bullet points, and otherwise I would have just written in bullet points. There's a reason for that, because I wrote that book very carefully, layering in facing your fear when things come up, and other things like that are actually very in tune with Love Yourself. Also the core philosophy behind it. the whole darkness in the window and shine, and wiping the window. So if someone just read a bullet list, I don't think it would really work for them unless they actually read it in the way it was written, with the themes coming in and out of it. That's why I think that book does so well. And like everybody I met who's read it, they at least were willing to consider loving themselves when they were finished and doing something. Like that was the whole point of the book. It's like that. I wrote it like that book is short. And most people realize is just how hard I worked on that book. I mean, I cut out like 80 or 90% what I wrote, to the point of everything just slid in for a purpose. Like every chapter hits some sort of, basically if your ego will pop up and say, well, what about this? And there'll be a small chapter that just negates that. So ultimately you have no choice but to consider loving yourself in a very practical way.
And you're the first person that bring up an L word in Silicon Valley.
I guess.
People don't talk about love yourself, especially, I guess, Americans.
No, you're right.
You have to be cool, You can't be like,
you're killing it and all that. It's actually I remember when this company I built was failing, and I went to this party with this VC that they invited their portfolio company CEOs, and I was one of them. And all the other guys, they were like, and there were a few women. There was male. Silicon Valley is still quite male centric. They were like killing it. They were all like, it was like almost like a macho thing that my the company was doing, and I felt awful because like Hera was trying to just like a plane's falling apart in midair, and I'm just like there hammering away, trying to keep it from blowing up. And I was just like, felt like such a failure. I talked to my brother. He's like, and he's a very successful investor in the Valley. And he's like, the irony is all those guys, man, they're like ducks. They look calm up there, but they're just paddling fiercely underneath. Like you just happen to be more transparent. That's the only difference. If you look at the data, like 90-something% of companies fail. Startups fail. That's the actual data, right? So do they fail because of the founders? Some, but a lot fail because just the market, weather, butterflies in Japan, whatever. It's the world, right?
I also heard that one theory was because they call themselves a startup and they never really grow and they just think like they're a beginner. I
mean, ultimately you're building a business. I think I'm not a fan of, people are like, oh, I have a 50-person startup. No, you're an actual company. You're employing 50 people. You're not a startup. Startup's 2 guys, like coding away. That's a startup.
What is the magic number that would be really good for some people, for like creative people? Because I
don't think there is one, but like ultimately you're either creating a business or you're creating a nonprofit. Be clear with yourself what you're doing. If you're creating a business, then there's very clear metrics. There's users, revenue, whatever. There's a clear metric that you have to work on, and it's the only thing that matters. And everything you do, you work on that. If you haven't, you could be spend all your time otherwise, like on all the stuff that's sexier and cooler. But in the end, it's a business, and if it's not moving the dial on what matters for your business, it will fail. I think it's actually very easy to get lost in the wrong metrics, in the wrong data. We were talking about this earlier about marketing, right? I think a lot of times people get caught up with, well, that's not beautiful enough, that's not sexy enough. No, what works? Clean, simple, clear, honest. What works? That's it.
That's why we need more than one brain to remind one another and have inputs.
Well, sure, but all this information is on the web. I mean, it's not rocket science.
Sometimes I think it's cool that we can wrap our brain around everything. Like sometimes when I think that we are so imperfect as humans, and when I talk to a friend just easily point out, why don't you just do this? And I think it's quite beautiful. We're not robots.
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah. So in my last interview, James Altucher talked about
love him. Love James.
Working on something with you concerning the future. Which is virtual reality. How much can you share with us?
I think we're going to be investing in virtual reality and augmented reality companies, because that's actually, we both believe, is the next platform that's going to change a significant chunk of the economy, or at least affect it. Just like originally had the browser, right? It changed pretty much everything, right? If you think about it, right? So a lot of billion-dollar companies came out of that new platform. So the second thing that did the same was the mobile phone, the apps.
Yes.
Right? how many billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar company came that purely exists on that little device as an app? Instagram, WhatsApp, name all these, right? That's the second one. The third one is going to be VR and AR. So that's what we believe, and we've been part of both cycles, so we can see the patterns, and we both are investors. So it's like it'll be fun to invest. I'm a big believer in only work with people you love, and I love James, and I think he's one of the smartest human beings on the planet, and it'll be fun. Yeah, it'll be fun.
But after I talked to him, I went to Juice Generation ISET for a while because my brain just feel like heated, overheated. I was like, his brain muscle is really strong, and I also love the way you see the world. I think everybody has a filter.
Yeah.
And by talking to them, you see how they see the world, and you can make choices. And maybe last year's filter will be different from next year's filter.
No, James. I'm a huge fan of his. Yeah, I'm very fortunate to count him as a friend.
And he loves you.
It's mutual. It's mutual.
So earlier we also talked about how transparent you are, and it's really hard in 2017 for people to feel like they're the same person, at work or at home. There are some conflicts in terms of the personal branding or just the impression. What are your thoughts on what works for you and what you see that's happening in society?
I don't like the whole concept of personal branding. I think James told me this. He's like, first of all, if you're a company and you're trying to brand something, so you're branding sugar water as fun. You look at Coca-Cola, fun, all that. So basically what you're doing is you're creating lies. Like sugar water, it does not equal running around and having fun. It means it means having diabetes and having your leg cut off. That's what sugar water means. So I'm not a fan of the whole thing about people personal branding or how do I want to look to the world. And actually there's a great talk I watched with Oprah. I'm a huge Oprah fan. I love watching her talks. And she said, people talk about her brand. She's like, what's my brand? I'm Oprah. I'm just always done what I've done. And she said, what I realized what it was? I would just try to be excellent whatever I do. She said, just be excellent. That'll be your brand. Be your best. And I'm a big believer in that. Just be you, just do your best, and the brand naturally happens. Take risks. I wouldn't even know what my brand is or transparent. I'm kind of a private guy. I'm friendly, I'm social, I love connecting with people.
I think what I meant is you're truthful.
Okay. Well, why wouldn't I be? It'd be it's far easier to be truthful than it is to be just make up things, and you got to keep track of all of them. Now, keep in mind, as a writer, I think one thing I've learned is people get caught up and they mistake facts for the truth. Facts are not the truth. Emotional truth is the truth. So as a writer, you go for the emotional truth. So that's why actually fiction, I've learned, is actually a far better way to tell the truth sometimes than nonfiction is. Yeah, it's a very powerful lesson I've learned as a writer. And the only way I could have learned it was trying to do it and realizing what that magic was. And so I have such greater respect now for novelists than I ever did before. The level of work it takes to go emotional truth is hard to actually come across. Facts, anyone can spout facts. It means nothing, Really, the sun, it takes 8 minutes for light to get here. Great, that's a fact. But the feeling of what the sun does for you versus what it'd be like if all of a sudden, 8 minutes from now, there is no light. There's an emotional truth in there. They use that. That's where you create emotion. So now I'm making stuff up. But
no, but I get it. It's that subtlety.
Yeah. So I'm
that
not
overlooked too.
Yeah. So I'm not a fan of sharing, oversharing. I like to, I love to create. I love to really work hard on it. I love to share it with the world. It's a gift to me. I'm very fortunate. I have this thing I love.
For us.
Well, thank you. It goes. The world gives you so much more in return than you ever gave it. That's one thing I've learned. You have to give it, right? And you have to be honest. You have to give it real. And love yourself. I really expected to be a huge laughing stock when I put it out. And I was willing to take that risk. Right.
You said you were gonna just write it for a few friends.
Yeah. To shut them up. Here it is. Like stop talking. Right. And it's changed my life. It really is. I could always say like life before I published Love Yourself, life after I published Love Yourself. And I've done some pretty interesting things in my life before that. But what I do, I really put my real self out there and shared something that was my truth. It was that simple. And, after it came out and started being successful, I was worried that, well, I used to get these emails from people, and it's almost like they expect me to be perfect. And I'm like, I'm really not. I'm just a guy who's trying to figure stuff out. That's all I do, And I figured it's okay. It's okay to, like, show people my imperfections, because we all are. In fact, anyone who tries to be perfect online, I don't trust them. Because I've met too many of these people, and in person, that's why I love James. James is so honest about his imperfection. Cheryl Richardson, who's unbelievably amazing. She was an Oprah author, or she was an Oprah for a year. She's the real deal. She's like that. Tim Ferriss, I loved him. Tim's very honest about what he deals with as a man. Like his own personal issues. It blows people away, but it actually I think is encouraging, because you don't want to put anybody up on a pedestal. You just don't. It's just human beings.
Someone in the audience asked Tim a question at Tools of Titans release, and
amazing book, by the way. Amazing book.
I can't wait. I have it.
Yeah, me too.
Actually, I think it's the moderator that asked, "What do you have in the future, or what's next year?" And he was like,
"Uh-huh.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
This book.
Yeah.
And we'll see."
Yeah.
I think the part that's not easy for most people is once they make a goal, they don't change it. They just keep going at it, and they just get so frustrated and exhausted. And without realizing, you can also be flexible, because when they're flexible, they're not disciplined. I guess I'm speaking for a lot of artists around me and myself. So it's maintaining that balance.
Yeah. The goals, I think, can be short term. Like, for example, finish this book.
Yeah.
Like, Tim did have a goal and a deadline to a publisher for finishing Tools of Titans. He did that. Then he's a goal in marketing. He's doing that. After that, what's the next thing? He's got a TV show, he's got this, he's got that, which is great, because life brings you so much when you start putting stuff out that you can't have planned for it. Mm-hmm. Like, I couldn't have planned for, like, the fact that I've been doing interviews like this. Like, I never did that before. Like, it all came because of my writing, me just putting stuff out, right? It's absolutely fascinating. I'm still kind of like, I get a kick out of it, yeah, it's very interesting.
There are 3 questions I would love to ask you, Kamal.
Okay.
Question number 1, what would you say to your 20-year-old self if you can Skype or Zoom? We talk about video calls, FaceTime, Google Hangout with him. What would you tell him?
One thing, huh? I'll tell him one thing. The power of self-commitment. Make commitments to yourself and keep them. That's it. Whatever you desire, want, short-term, long-term, who you want to be, your level of fitness, what you want in life, anything, the kind of person you want to be, make yourself a commitment to that, and make a vow and keep it. Don't break your word to yourself. That's it. That right there will transform the arc of your life. That's what has done for me over time. But it took me a lot longer to learn that.
And that's a good time to know that.
I think I wish someone told me when I was 10. But like, better late than never, right? And it's always a work in progress, right? No one's perfect. But if you start to make that a habit, I think you develop this sense of like there's nothing you can't do. Because you trust yourself. If you trust yourself, you walk differently in the world. People sense it. People sense that within you, right? You don't have to be anything. You just are. And like a person who keeps their word to themselves consistently, that's a special thing.
I really like that.
Okay.
It's very internal.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. It all starts from the internal.
So question number 2 has 4 parts.
Oh, good God. All right.
Can you give us a little tip on each of these areas?
Mm-hmm.
Health, wealth, love, and happiness.
Oh, good God. Health. There's so much stuff out there on health. It's such a broad field. I mean, my first career was in trauma research. I watched a lot of people die in front of me. I watched a lot of people but taking bags of medicine and then other bags of medicine to counteract the effects of the, and some of it all comes from taking care of yourself. And, we all know ultimately what we need to do to take care of ourselves. At this point in modern society, we do it. I think it's the same thing. You basically pick a thing, you commit, and you just do it consistently. But every time I do that is it works for me. Like we were talking about discipline, and I think a lot of people have issues with health or fitness because of lack of self-discipline. They perceive lack of self-discipline, and for me, discipline is something I've had pretty good luck with, so forth, that I've been able to do it a lot since young. And for me, because it was always this, like we used an example earlier of a piece of chocolate cake. I love cake. I love chocolate. I haven't had chocolate cake in years. Why? Is because I can, like, when I'm in front of it, I can actually, like, if I'm really in the state of self-commitment, I actually imagine myself being fit and how good that feels to be fit. Right, how good it feels to be able to see my abs, right? And versus then I look at that chocolate. Also, that cake is not that appealing because that gets in the way of what I really want. So I think self-discipline is actually not saying no to things. Self-discipline is saying yes to yourself. So I think if we make commitments of saying yes to ourselves, of our real self, our health will be transformed. I think everything, all the 4 things you said, will be transformed. Wealth.
Can I insert one
Please,
thing before
please, I love it.
1.1? I read that you won a modeling contest.
Yeah.
We're talking about the apps.
Yeah.
When was that?
That was like, I don't know, 5 years ago, something like that. Yeah, it was just, I did it for fun. I didn't expect to win it.
Wow.
Yeah, it was fun. And you know what? I think I won it, honestly, because I had fun. I was on stage and I was just like, damn, I didn't care. When you go through life, you just don't care. Like, like things just, people like that. I mean, I like that.
What were you dressed in, and that was your hair?
They
at the time?
actually dressed us up and we did
Okay.
the catwalk and like I was the professional models and it was just fun. It was a little scary, go out there and whatever, but it's like when you go do these scary things and have fun, all of a sudden, like it can end up being a very cool thing. Worst case, I wouldn't have won, and I was expecting to win anyway. Yeah.
Okay, now back to wealth.
Wealth. Wealth or money? Let's do traditional. Let's say wealth, money, right? I think for myself, I've learned, and this is for myself, the kind of person that I am, is if I just go purely for money, it always blows up. If I go for something that I really care about and I want to be a part of, I want to create, it works out great. So, in that case, if I know how you're wired, if you're a creative person and you want to, and that's what drives you, then make sure if you're chasing quote unquote wealth or success, do it in that. Otherwise, it's more likely than not to work, and also it's way more fulfilling. Like if you start having success and monetary success and things that you really care about, like the money I make from my books it's so fulfilling to like be able to write and actually like get paid for it. It's amazing. I did it for so many years and didn't make a dime. In fact, I was spending money, right? And let me tell you, that's really fulfilling. There's something beautiful about it.
Is that for wealth?
I'd say so. I mean, there's so much stuff out there in wealth, and I'm not. I mean, there's like Tony Robbins' book. I mean, look, Tools of Titans. Tim's book has great stuff. There's a section called Wealth. Great stuff in there. Just go read that. Really, I mean, I think that's an easier one. There's enough information out there. My only thing is if you can do what's an expression of you, and use that to actually create money for yourself, it's the best thing in the world.
Yeah, I remember the 4 things that you said in that speech.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Be the expression of you.
Mm-hmm.
Be the expression of you. Give your all. Give your all. Because if it's your truth, then you gotta give it your all.
You do.
Tell the world about it and let go of the outcome.
Yeah, that's hard for us, right? But that's one of the most important things, because otherwise, our sense of self becomes attached to the outcome. And the only thing we're truly responsible for is our effort. That's the only truly thing we can control is our effort. Outcomes, you set out to the world and you do your best. Oh, usually outcomes are pretty good, but sometimes they're not. But either way, you give your all. Yeah.
I love it. When you just said that, I was ding.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing we can control.
Only thing we control in life is what we give. That's it. We can't control anything else. So if we truly internalize that and we're giving our all in the moment, and our best varies from moment to moment, from project to project, from season to season. But as long as we know, I think that's even the 4 agreements, right? One of the 4 agreements is do your best or something like that. I read a long time ago, but it's really that these things, they come from culture to culture. If you do your best and you're not going to look back with regrets. It's I think when we look back at regrets, if I was to look at my personal regrets in life, it'd be when I didn't listen to my heart, or I didn't do my best, give my all. And that resulted in things that led to regrets. Yeah.
Otherwise, if you take the outcome so you feel like you're responsible for the outcome, and then when the unknown kicks in, you just feel like you're totally out of control.
Well, you're always yo-yoing then based on the world versus your sense of self and your sense of self-worth and even your internal happiness comes from what you're responsible for, which is far more powerful way to be in the world.
I think you just answered happiness.
Okay. I know I'm definitely happier when I'm just giving my all. I'm happier when I know that I'm working on something I care about. I'm happier when and that can be anything. It can be relationships, it can be whatever. But I'm happier then. And when I'm half-assing stuff. Can I say half-assing on it?
Of course,
okay.
You can curse.
All right, when I'm half-assing stuff is when I'm miserable. Not miserable, I'm unhappy when I'm half-assing. Yeah. And I do that a lot, by the way, so I'm not but I know that, so I try to snap myself out of it. I'll ask myself, what am I half-assing, right? And then it's a choice. I can continue half-assing and stay that way, or I can or change things and not have that in my life, or go do my best I can.
Right. Love, anything to add? I feel like everything blends into one now. If you're
talking to a single guy, right? So I don't know if I'm the right guy for that, honestly. It's kind of comical, because I will get all these emails asking for relationship advice. I'm like, best of luck to you, do your best.
But when you love yourself, it totally helps.
Oh yeah. So when you start from within, then you can give to without. And love what I've learned. Let's say in relationships, right? When I've held back, 2 things. Very similar regrets I talk about. Either when I've held back, like when I kept my heart closed, it got broken. It's actually a very interesting irony. The more you close your heart, the more it gets broken. The more you try to protect it, the more it gets broken.
It reminded me of a chapter in the book.
Yep.
Talk about yourself as if this main character had a relationship with someone before he knows himself, before he loves himself. So then the self that he projected is not even really him. Yeah,
and I think it's when I say open our heart, I don't mean I think a lot of people get a lot caught up in the word vulnerability, and then that meaning let me just vomit my life all over you. No, that's not vulnerability. That's just vomiting your life on your facts on someone. That means nothing. That's just saying, here's my pain, boom, it's on you, have fun. That's not love. I mean, love is sharing the real self, the real fears, but the real depth, the real brightness, the real amazing self that the human beings that we are. And that comes from an open heart. That does not come from a closed heart. And even if things don't work out, if you think about it, if you had your heart open, it's you, and if your heart open heals you. When you go through stuff, it's the closed heart that hurts. It's not the open heart that hurts. That's really something I've learned for myself. And the second one is in relationships. Not having listened to my heart. When my heart knew that this was not the right place for me to relationship with be in, I still went in, and we all know, we all have intuition, we all have a gut sense, and if we don't follow it, we're responsible, and eventually we learn, and I think it takes a sense of personal courage to go beyond what we think we want versus what our heart desires us, and usually our heart desires us to go into the unknown rather than the known, which is easy and safe and predictable, right?
I feel like earlier you said every time you fall in love, it feels like the first time falling in love.
That's a Brazilian woman said that.
Right. Okay.
Brilliant.
She said that, and I always feel grateful that we can have that feeling over and over. But I don't feel the broken-hearted feeling as much as the first time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, the first dramatic one.
The first time it's like upside down. I'm looking in the train track, telling my mom I might just jump down. And then you kind of learn and you protect, not protect in a closed hard way, but you know where your line is, and you know how you are and how you love and what you need to do to help yourself.
Yeah. It's very true.
Interesting topic.
Yeah, it's a topic one could ramble. I don't think I'm qualified to talk on relationships, honestly.
Everybody says that, though.
Yeah, really, it's kind of comical. Like, yeah, let me see. I'm thinking about my friends who, and if I look at people who have just true great relationships consistently, because a lot of people in a relationship looks good from the outside. What in the inside, it comes from the core thing. They're committed to each other in a very real way. It's a commitment that's reinforced daily. It's not taking the other person for granted, which is a thing we fall into. Like the ones that work, I think, and just being real and keeping true to that original commitment. Versus, well, now you're mine, so I can be lazy and I can be a slob and I can just not care. No, that's actually, everything's a practice, right? So I would say if I was to be in a relationship, my goal would be to make it a daily practice to really, that's important, and to work, to at least nurture it, right? Just like I take care of my body or my mind or whatever, it'd be the same thing. But then again, maybe that's why I'm single. I don't know. So yeah, who knows? Now I'm just rambling.
Well, but it's you cannot say it's not by choice, though. If it's the right time and the right person. I feel like we have all more than 50 soulmates that we can have. Soulmates, whatever that means. I think there's so many people in the world.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting people in the world. True.
Yeah, I guess.
You're right. It's a matter of priorities. You're
super busy right now.
Insanely busy, and I'm it's that season where I have things I care about that I'm working hard to accomplish, and that's the thing, I'm working hard, and I was telling her yesterday that I walked into a glass wall, I almost broke my head because I was so tired, I was so sleep deprived, and today I have a wicked headache. I really don't care, because right now it is a season for me to be working this hard, because I'll look back with zero regrets for what I'm working on, and that's fine itself. I can't go at this pace forever. I have a timeline for this, and I'll do it, and then I'm going to go lie on a beach somewhere and just do it.
So it has to do with the season.
Yeah,
the summer is when you relax.
No, summer I worked really hard at writing the book.
You just basically work out all the time.
It was a different kind of working hard, right? Because a lot of writing is also sitting around dreaming. Right now I'm in the place of with my venture fund, and also the book's coming out. So the first time ever I'm promoting a book, and so that's actually turning out to be a lot of work because I really care about this book and I want to do it in the right way.
Yeah.
So but a dear friend of mine said, listen, Kamal, you put so much into writing this book. You give so much of yourself, right? Look at the result. You have to put that level of effort into putting it on the world so it can fly. So I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. And what that means is me just going out there and sharing with people. And I ultimately believe you create something of value, you share with it enough, it flies. The product's got to fly on its own. You can't just cram it down people's throats.
It grows wings.
Yeah, it really does. It's got a life of its own, and it just opens up the world for you. Yeah, that's the magic of creating. The magic of creating is when you put it out to the world, not when you keep it hidden. When you put it out to the world, it opens up doors for you didn't even know exist. I swear to you, that's what I've learned, and I'm experiencing that every time. It's beautiful. You want to move up in the world in any way, create great stuff, put it out. Create good stuff, put it out. The world would doors just start opening on their own. So you don't have to worry, you know. You don't have to like try to open the doors. I think which is what a lot of people try to do.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Imagine that. Just
Yeah.
like, it's locked.
I mean, like, because of Love Yourself, the kind of people who reach out to me, you know, like well-known people and celebrities and so forth. People, you know, I'm not. It doesn't. I mean, all sorts of interesting people and the business opportunities that come, you know, because people feel they know me. I never in my life could ever plan that, ever. I wouldn't even know how to plan that, how to go about like executing on that. It just comes, right? Because I put something of value out to the world.
Yes.
That simple.
I can't wait for my New York realists to all be reading the book.
Oh,
and
me
going
too.
to
Me
have
too. Me too.
Their journey. Last question. What is your favorite memory? You can share one or more of New York City. So you moved here. Oh, you don't really have a stationary place. You think you're.
I move around a lot.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, you have to ask my tax attorney. Actually.
But it's been more than a year that you have a place here.
I've had an apartment here. And so like when I'm in New York, I stay here. And New York is a magical city. It's an absolutely magical city. One of my favorite memories here is, you know, New York is the serendipity here. The absolute serendipity of the kind of people you meet. So the place where I would go and have coffee, you know, while I was writing. And so they got to know me as the writer. That's what they called me, right? The writer. Like working on his book. And one day, you know, I paid my bill and I'm leaving. And there was a gentleman, older gentleman, sitting at the bar, got 2 seats down from me. He's dressed in very properly, suit. This is like 10 a.m. He was having a coffee and a glass of wine. And I was like, that's really interesting. So I get up and the bartender goes, you know, good luck with writing today. I was like, oh, thanks. And so to go on, the man goes, excuse me, I heard him say you're a writer. I said, yes. And he said, oh, I'm a writer too. I'm like, really? Cool. Like, what do you write about? And then we started talking, and turns out he was a reporter, and he was retired, and he lived in the area, and his wife was a writer, and she passed away, and he talked about what it was like for both of them to be writing at the same time, and how writers need their space when they're writing, and how they work that out. Beautiful conversation.
So you sat back down and you were leaving.
Oh, what a beautiful conversation, right? We exchanged it. I came home, and I looked him up. The guy wasn't just a writer, okay? The guy wrote the definitive biography of Malcolm X. He hung out with Malcolm X. He wrote the definitive biography of Malcolm X. He wrote the definitive book on the Vietnam War. He was the first journalist to actually talk with soldiers about the real experience and not just all the other stuff as human beings, as Americans out there, as soldiers. He won the magazine industry's version of the Pulitzer. I mean, this guy lived American history and wrote it.
Wow.
And I had the honor of being there and having coffee with this man and just talking to him about writing.
That just sounds like all the people you meet in the journey. And
Yeah,
you didn't even
no, I had no idea. We
It.
just talked about writing, right? And he told me, you could tell he was a writer the way he talked about stories and so forth. And he said now he was writing fiction. He used to write nonfiction. He said written a bunch of nonfiction books. And we talked, you know, you can tell as one writer or another. You can tell when someone's a real writer because you start talking about the craft, versus the real writers talk about the craft. I think people are not, and forgive me for this. I think people who are not real writers talk about the pain. You know, writing is not about the pain. Writing is an amazing gift. You know, but it's work. You know, you have a tool set. You hammer and chisel every day. So that man was a real writer, right? And to talk over coffee, just serendipity, right? Talk to him about writing, and then come back to write my book, and just out of curiosity look him up, and just be like, oh my God, like my God, this man lived American, like crucial in the civil rights and Vietnam War, lived it, and wrote the definitive books on it. And
Are
I
you
had
gonna give him the book. Give him Rebirth.
Well, yeah, I emailed him, and I'm sure I'll see him again. But I was like, I just want. Before we left, I didn't know what he'd written, but I was like, I'd like to take you out to dinner sometime. You know, like that's the kind of people you meet in New York. So just randomly, just amazing, accomplished, humble people who have done such great work. That's New York.
Yeah, and it's people everywhere.
Yeah.
If he didn't hear the barista say that.
Yeah.
Hi, right?
Yeah.
Bye, right?
Yeah. You never know who these people are, and everyone's, and I love talking to the homeless people. They have the most interesting stories, like I'm the guy who always call them sir or ma'am and talk to them. I have great conversations sometimes with the homeless people on the subway. It's like we end up talking about where they're from and so forth. It's people here are fascinating.
All the stories.
Yeah.
And you're easy to spot.
I've heard. Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you would like to add about what you would love for your where you would love your reader to get in touch with you if they want to ask questions or just connect? You're pretty active on Twitter.
I'm active on Twitter. I finally, after bitching and moaning about it for years, set up a Facebook page. And I'm still it's weird, a page about me,
But we like it.
So I'm getting used to that. It's kind of fun actually seeing these people who read my books, connected with them through there.
And they talk among themselves.
Yeah. It's actually turning out to be a very interesting growth experience for me. And so I have to step up and share more because it can be quite I just kind of keep to myself and do my thing. And I set up a website for the book Rebirth. It's called rebirthfable.com, and you can go there and there's more information on the book and people who reviewed it. So it's been getting I'm very lucky. It's been getting very nice reviews, and I even set up one of those offers. Hey, if you get one book, you buy one book, you get all of this. Buy 2 books, buy 10 books. You can Skype call me for a while, and that's rebirthfable.com/offer. And it's up to you. But if you do, I would love it, and I'll definitely make it worth your while.
Yay! Thank you so much for being on Near Real. When I first met you, we met at the dinner. Now I interviewed the person on my right, who is you, and the person on my left, Jeremy Redleaf. And when you sat down, I remember there's something special about this person. I gotta know his story. But we didn't talk about this first. We talked about San Francisco. And I said, should we, when we visit, should we rent a car? And you said,
Uber.
You got me hooked.
Uber, yeah. Why drive around when you have someone else driving around for cheaper?
Because the steep hills.
Oh, the hills are fun. But I love driving those hills in the stick shift because I love driving. But your first time driving those hills like this, and you get to a light, there's a car in front of you and behind you, and you're on a hill like this, and you're just trying not to start a collision that just goes all the way down. It's it's too nerve-wracking. It's not worth it unless you live there and you get used to the hills.
Yeah. Well, I was born and raised in Hong Kong, so Hong Kong has many hills too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but New York is different, and New York is lucky to have you.
I'm lucky to be here. It's really, of every place I've been, I think this is the most magical city on the planet, and it's the people, it's the zaniness, it's the absolute crazy zaniness of New Yorkers, just fascinating creatures.
Yeah. So I also push myself to have more conversations because you never know.
Yeah. Oh my God, the people you meet here are just unbelievable.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you. So I'm just gonna drop coffee on you. So let me give you a proper hug, actually, like a one.
Thank you, yay!
You're looking for a higher love inside of me. The world can often act like a friend of me. Don't get ahead of me. Your love, my love, our love. If you wanna call it love, you gotta give it something more. Back down the path of least resistance.